Deep thinking, a different way to see yourself. K-pop demon hunters leveled up K-culture. How many times have you already watched K-pop demon hunters? Recently, something interesting happened. A show appeared, and suddenly K-pop wasn't just music anymore. The story is simple. A K-pop girl group lives a double life. On stage, they're idols. Off stage, they fight demons threatening the human world. But what makes this interesting isn't the demons. It's the structure. They train together, move together, fight together. Their strength doesn't come from one hero. It comes from synchronization. That's a very Korean idea. At first, it looks playful, almost exaggerated. It's culture turning into a story, then a universe, then a genre. For years, K-pop wasn't only about songs. It built characters, narratives, emotional journeys. Fans didn't just listen, they followed. So when K-culture became a full fictional world, it didn't feel strange. When a culture grows large enough, people stop just consuming it. They start living inside it. That's when music becomes identity and fandom becomes belonging. K-pop Demon Hunters isn't really about demons. It shows how far K-culture has traveled from charts to screens to worlds you can step into. And once a culture reaches that point, it doesn't stay local. It becomes a place.
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
BTS Ticket, what it represents. Have you ever seen a girl cry over a single BTS concert ticket? People cry over a ticket, not because it's expensive, but because of what it represents. For many BTS fans, the music was never something casual. Songs were streamed again and again. Lyrics were translated line by line. Those lyrics felt personal. They spoke about fear, loneliness, self-doubt, and the slow process of growing up. What mattered most was realizing those feelings were not private. Millions of people their age felt the same way. So the ticket is not simply entry to a concert. It is entry into a shared emotional space with people who experienced the same struggles, the same healing, and the same growth. It is no longer just I like this music. It becomes, this is part of who I am. Fans want to stand together with people who understand them, and with the artists who gave language to their inner voice. When they get the ticket, the joy feels overwhelming. When they do not, the disappointment can bring tears, because what they miss is not a performance. It is a moment of shared identity. That feeling of becoming yourself together is something people can feel deeply, whether they are in the East or the West.
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Why Korea has no tipping. In the US, tipping is built into the system. It's not just a thank you. It's part of the wage. Many service workers are paid less per hour, and tips help complete their income. That's why tipping often feels expected, not optional. In Korea, the system works differently. Service workers in restaurants, cafes, taxis, salons already earn at least the legal minimum wage, regardless of tips. Their pay does not depend directly on the customer. So no one expects a tip, and no one asks for it. But tipping still happens sometimes. Not because it is required, but because someone genuinely felt satisfied. When that happens, the response feels different. You might receive a small extra service, an extra drink, or simply a sincere thank you. Because the wage is already settled, the tip does not complete the job. It steps outside the system and becomes a small human exchange. Same action, different system. Tipping stops being only about manners. It becomes a question of how each society chose to design service, pay, and gratitude. And perhaps the deeper question is this: do we notice the system behind the habits we take for granted?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Why Korea chose no shoes indoors. In many American and European homes, shoes remain on indoors. Radiators or fireplaces warm. The air and daily life happens above the floor. Chairs, sofas, and beds define posture and space. The floor is mainly for walking. Although winters can be cold, air-based heating systems have long been sufficient indoors. Korea developed under different conditions. Located between continental and maritime climates, the peninsula faced long, harsh winters. Survival required not only producing heat, but storing it. Homes adopted ondol, a floor-based heating system that warmed the entire surface from beneath and released heat slowly over time. People sat, ate, and slept close to that warmth. The floor became central to daily life. Removing shoes was practical at first. Warm floors were meant to stay clean, so shoes were left at the entrance. Wearing shoes indoors or taking them off is a cultural difference. Culture is not simply a matter of better or worse. But from a hygiene and health perspective, shoes carry dust and bacteria from outside streets. Removing them reduces what enters the home. Same habit, different lens. If the question shifts from culture to health, would you take your shoes off at the door?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Is nunchi awareness or self-suppression? In Western cultures, speaking openly is often associated with confidence. Direct expression is encouraged, and saying what you think is seen as honesty. Silence can sometimes be interpreted as uncertainty. Korea developed under geographical and agricultural conditions different from the West. Rice cultivation, the primary livelihood, required collective water management and transplanting seedlings within a short seasonal window. Because this labor was impossible for a single household, neighbors had to cooperate intensely. In a society dependent on such bonds, being considerate of others became essential. Over time, this attentiveness evolved into what is called nunchi, the ability to sense the atmosphere before speaking. In such tightly bound communities, standing out could be difficult. Individual expression was sometimes softened to preserve harmony. To some observers, nunchi may look like restraint or self-suppression, but within its historical context, it developed as social awareness shaped by interdependence. Still, the boundary can be thin. Awareness can become constant self-monitoring, and consideration may turn into hesitation. Same behavior, different structure. And perhaps the deeper question is this: when I hold back my words, am I practicing awareness or suppressing myself?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Is your greeting real or just habit? In many Western cultures, greetings are simple and direct. A quick hi, a handshake, or even just eye contact can be enough. The goal is to acknowledge presence, not to define the relationship. In Korea, greetings often carry more layers. A slight bow, a change in tone, or even the words themselves may shift, depending on who you are speaking to. This did not emerge randomly. In a society shaped by hierarchy, age, and social roles, greetings became a way to position oneself within the relationship. It was not just about saying hello, but about recognizing order before interaction begins. Over time, this structure turned greetings into a form of awareness. You read the situation, adjust your expression, and respond accordingly. To some, this may feel respectful and refined. To others, it may seem rigid or performative. The form may stay the same, but meaning quietly shifts. Same words, different intention. And perhaps the deeper question is this: when I greet someone, am I expressing who I am, or simply following what is expected of me?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Why Koreans are so nosy. In many cultures, asking "How old are you?" is the quickest way to end a conversation. It feels invasive, even rude. But in Korea, it's often the very first thing people want to know, along with your job, your marital status, and even your future plans. If you've ever felt like your privacy was being invaded, before you even said hello, you're not alone. It can feel like someone is crossing a line you didn't even draw. But in the Korean mind, that line isn't being crossed. It simply hasn't been placed yet. In Korea, the sequence of human connection is reversed. Connection forms first, and boundaries are adjusted later. These questions are a search for common ground. The moment you answer, a Korean person is waiting to say, "Me too. My son is the same age." This curiosity is actually a high-speed engine for friendship. It's an invitation to stop being strangers and start being us. And perhaps the deeper question is this: when we feel a line has been crossed, are we protecting something essential? Or are we simply reacting to a bridge we weren't ready to cross?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Is we connection or disappearance? You might notice something unusual in Korea. People often say we when they actually mean I. Even when something clearly belongs to one person, the expression shifts. This is not just a linguistic habit. In many Western cultures, identity is built around the individual. You define yourself by your choices, your beliefs, and your independence. In Korea, the starting point has often been different. In a society shaped by interdependence and shared responsibility, belonging was not optional but expected. Over time, this perspective became embedded in everyday language. The individual is still there, but often framed through connection. Even private things can be expressed as part of a shared context. The boundary between self and group becomes less visible. To some, this may feel warm and reassuring. To others, it may feel limiting or unclear. Same identity, different structure. And perhaps the deeper question is this: when I say we, am I expressing connection or slowly losing sight of who I am?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Why don't Koreans use names? It is a common question. When people first notice how Koreans address each other, instead of names, you often hear titles: teacher, manager, senior, even family roles used outside the family. At first, it can feel distant, as if something personal is being avoided. The interaction may seem formal, even in casual situations. But what if something else is being emphasized instead? In some cultures, using someone's name signals equality. It places both people on the same level, and interaction begins from there. The focus is on the individual first. In Korea, the starting point can be different. A title is not only a label, but a way to recognize position within a relationship. Before the conversation unfolds, the structure is already acknowledged. The relationship is defined first. This can create clarity, but it can also create distance. The person is still there, yet the role often speaks first. Over time, that role can shape the interaction itself. And perhaps the deeper question is this: when I choose how to call someone, Am I seeing the person or responding to the position they hold?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper. See you in the next video.